We're here with Donna Wexler at her business, Let's Communicate. Donna is a speech-language pathologist who works with families with autism and other developmental disabilities. Hi, Donna.
Hi.
Can you tell us about Let's Communicate?
Sure. Let's Communicate is a private practice that was started in 1996 with a couple of therapists. And we had just a few children at the time. Now we have many, many more, probably about 50 clients at this time. And the business has grown from just providing speech-language services to offering social groups. We also have an occupational therapist and a social worker and a Moscatova specialist on board.
Can you tell us why you chose speech pathology as a profession?
Sure. As a child, I was very, very shy and also very curious about other children in my community who had disabilities. And so when I went to college, my sister suggested looking at exceptional student education, and I took my first course. And I knew that that was what I wanted to do as my life's work.
Tell us about meeting a child, diagnosing the problem, and choosing a plan to work with.
Well, the intake really begins on the telephone. We talk at length with the parents and find out what is going on with the child. Sometimes we have to make a referral somewhere else if we don't feel that our facility could treat them. But after the intake, we make an appointment. The child comes for an individual evaluation. Even if they're coming for group therapy, they're seen for an individual evaluation to determine what their challenges are. And then a treatment plan is set up for them, and it's reviewed with their family, and then the therapy begins after that.
I'm sure there are many rewarding moments when you see the child responding and progressing to your therapy. Give us an idea of what you consider success.
Well, that's why I've been doing this work for 45 years, because many of the children go from either not being able to speak at all to being able to speak, or being able to use an augmentative device, or being able to develop a friendship when they never had a friendship. So what do I consider success? I consider their abilities being the best that they can achieve, and sometimes that doesn't mean that they're a wonderful communicator, but they've made some progress, and their parents are knowledgeable now because hopefully they have learned from our therapy what they need to do to keep their child communicating appropriately.
In most cases, you hear about the positive and successful examples and outcomes, but there are some children that don't respond to therapy, and you don't often hear about them. Would you tell us a little about them?
Well, I have a perfect example of that. My greatest teacher, my son, Jeremy, who is now 39 years old, achieved about 12 words that he could say. And being the great speech pathologist that I am, I was never able to get him to communicate any more than that. So the greatest lesson that I learned from that, and I try to teach other parents, is that we as parents need to accept our children where they are. So I don't consider my son to be a failure, and he commands the universe with his 12 words, but he never will be able to speak like you and I can speak.
What does he speak with?
He was never able to use a communication device. So he says words like up down, eat, buy, home. He says the names of his family members, but he can't really communicate in any other way.
How come he can't use a communicator?
He doesn't have the focus and attention and the eye-hand coordination to do that, despite the fact that he's had occupational therapy and physical therapy and other speech pathologists working with him. Some children just aren't, their brains aren't capable.
Do you work with any of the public school systems in diagnosing and treating developmental disabilities?
Yes. Many, as I mentioned earlier, many of my students also go to public school. They come here for additional therapy, and I think it's really essential that everyone who works with a child be on board. So the school system often accepts evaluations that I've done and vice versa, and I try to keep in touch with the teachers and educators in the school system.
When I was in public school, there was very little knowledge about autism and other developmental disabilities and how to deal with the children who had them. Do you think the public school system has made progress in this, and do they work with professionals like yourself to help the children?
Yes, Zach, and I believe that the world has changed because there are so many more people who are diagnosed with autism, and I find that parents are such wonderful advocates, especially parents of children with autism, that they are helpful in teaching the schools. I also work with advocates who help parents to go to the schools and get the needs met and educate the people in the schools. So has there been progress? Yes. Is there more progress that needs to be made? Yes, I'm sure. We all can do better.
Thank you very much, Donna.
Thank you so much for having me.